Floyd MacFarland of San Jose, California was considered a giant at 6 feet 4 inches when the average man's height was only 5 feet 5. He also possessed an outsized personality. By the early 1900s, he'd won hundreds of sprints in assorted distances in cities around the United States, Australia, and Europe. Victories included 2 Madison Square Garden 6 days and another in Boston. With Jimmy Moran of Chelsea, Massachusetts, MacFarland won Berlin's 1909 6. They befriended Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II, an enthusiastic 6-day fan.
Kaiser Wilhelm gave a set of solid gold cufflinks to MacFarland and to Moran as his own personal prize for these guys from the United States winning the race.
By 1912, Big Mac had turned 33. He settled in Newark and retired from racing to become a promoter. He challenged Chapman.
The best promoter we had around the bike game, as far as I thought, was Floyd MacFarland. He had the imagination, and he'd been a hell of a rider, you know. Yeah. And I guess he had Ebony had a good education, you see. Oh yes, he knew his way around.
Chapman took advantage of his overseas contacts to organize the 1912 World Cycling Championships that summer in Newark. MacFarland headed west and managed Salt Lake City's Salt Palace. He persuaded top pros, including Goulet, to follow. Mac's crew missed the World Championships. He made up for it at the end of the year by taking them on a barnstorming tour of Europe. In January 1913, MacFarland organized the first Paris 6-day in the indoor Velodrome d'Hiver, or Track of Winter. There, Ernest Hemingway attempted to capture the sport on paper, but didn't consider he rode as well as the racers rode. In his memoir, A Movable Feast, Hemingway wrote,
"The Velodrome d'Hiver with the smoky light of the afternoon, and the high-banked wooden track, and the whirring sound the tires made on the wood as the riders passed, the effort and tactics as the riders climbed and plunged, each one a part of his machine."
At MacFarland's Paris 6, some 15,000 spectators filled every seat and the infield as well to watch the field of 16 teams from 7 countries and 3 continents. Among them were 2 Tour de France champions, Petit Breton and Octave Lapise, and the admired Walthour.
The team of Alf Goulet and Joe Fogler won the very first Paris 6-day race that had later been held continuously for decades following.
MacFarland's traveling show continued around Europe before sailing in May to America. His race programs that drew crowds squeezed out Chapman. MacFarland's easy smile, charm, and knack for telling stories acted as a magnet for reporters. He also brought out the best from his stable of riders. His star Goulet scored 6-day triumphs in both Boston and Newark. MacFarland also usurped the Garden Sixes from Chapman. In the December 1914 Garden Six, Mac paired Goulet and Alfred Grenda of Tasmania against a hardy field. Goulet and Grenda pedaled a new winning record of 2,759.2 miles, the distance from San Francisco to Buffalo. Yet Mac also had a quick temper. In April 1915, on the Newark track, he got into an argument with a workman removing posters from the walls with a screwdriver. The argument suddenly turned into a fight.
MacFarland was killed had a fight with that
concession
guy with a, I don't know,
yeah.
It was an accident.
MacFarland's sudden death put Chapman back in charge of American bicycle racing.
Goulet claimed that if MacFarland had lived and, wasn't killed there still would be bike racing today after Chapman got out.
Yeah.
Yep.
People today don't realize how large and how important and how exciting the 6-day bike racing was in those days. They can't comprehend how it is. Every six-day bike race was treated like a Super Bowl today.
Entertainers Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, John Barrymore, and Enrico Caruso wore fur coats to the races. The celebrities pulled out rolls of cash and peeled off $100 bills for prizes that they called premiums, shortened to preems.
You had the celebrity crowd that would come in, and of course they're the ones that would say $50 for a preem, $100 for a preem. And if they wanted to be noted, that's what they would do. They would put a large amount of preem and get their name announced as putting up $100 or more.
Actress Peggy Hopkins Joyce, her diamonds flashing, had a grand time listening to the infield band play Pretty Peggy with Eyes of Blue, and watching the riders tear around the track to win her $1,000 preems.
Norman Hill tells a story of being in a six-day race when Peggy Hopkins Joyce was there. She served up a $1,000 premium, and a Frenchman named Cugnot, who is immortalized in that Edward Hopper painting, got to the front of the pack with 2 miles to go, and everyone else, because Cugnot was riding at such a fast clip, fell in behind him to draft. Norman Hill told me that he thought, this guy is going so fast, he'll only last a lap. And then 1 lap went by, 2 laps went by, 3 laps went by. Norman Hill started to get tired, as did everybody else. We're into 7 laps, 8 laps, 9 laps. Norman thought, this guy is not going to last. But $1,000 was on the line, and then he had another 10 laps to go, and then it was 9 laps to go, it was 8 laps to go, and he held on all the way to the end, and he got his $1,000 for that 2-mile preem.
The Gardens preems amounted to big money when a laborer earned $20 a week.
The big Pierce Arrow that we had, my dad won in a preem. And, I mean, that's a 1-lap race during the race. And he wins a $5,000 automobile, which is be like a $150,000 one now. And so everything was big. Money, there was a lot of money and there was a lot of gambling.
Chapman tinkered with the format. He introduced a series of 2-mile sprints for the December 1916 Madison Square Garden 6-day. Every morning, afternoon, evening, and night, teams competed in 10 2-mile sprint programs. Sixes were a mix of athletic competition, spectacle, and above all, an American sports tradition. When an official fired a pistol to signal each sprint, fans cheered their lungs out. Racers fled like thieves. They raced for points awarded to the top 4 finishers and cash prizes of $100 and more paid to winners. To mark the start of the final lap, officials at trackside vigorously clanged the boxing ring bell. On the final day, the points doubled. Their total, rather than miles covered, determined the winning team.
We used to get a good crowd for just the 2 o'clock sprints. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Sprints. Waiters, maitre d's, show business people, chorus girls, chorus boys, actors would come in. They worked until maybe 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and they come in for the 2 o'clock sprints just to see the sprints. Garden was quite a place.
You know who I met too? Al Capone. I was only a young man when I met him. I met him in Chicago. He'd buy a whole row of seats and have all his friends sitting in there. And he used to put preem after preem. He'd have the trainers. I was only a trainer those days, running around helping the pros learning the game. He'd have you running around the track for a $100 bill. He did.